Racing, competing, is in my blood. It's part of me, it's part of my life. I've been doing it all my life. And it stands up before anything else.
I heard that.
Back in the pit garage, the serious work is about to start. On all conversation. While Ayrton Senna continues to learn.
The rubber is few, later on to stop you, not allow you to go much. You're 14.9. You got 14.9. Are you happy? Sorry? Close it there and open more there. It is flying.
A smile from Frank Williams says it all.
I was curious. We tried to warm up the tyres, just give it a bit of heat.
But I know nothing about it, so I have to do a little bit of thing to
the steering.
And it feels a bit better because the pressures also were
Coming up
high.
Yes. What revs did you use this morning?
I suppose the best thing to say is that if I can be as happy as I have been this past few weeks, by the end of the year, then I feel that we have done pretty well during the '94 season.
Well, riding with Ayrton Senna at the moment. Running that brand new FW16 Williams with the Renault engine. And John, when we had a look at the rear suspension of the car in Brazil, I think it's a very interesting rear suspension, to say the least.
Well, Williams have taken advantage of rules, and they've incorporated an aerodynamic sheath over the top rear wishbones, and caused a few raised eyebrows as people thought that then constituted a movable aerodynamic device, but it was passed by the FIA scrutineer, and not much more has been heard on it. But just looking in with Senna here, how much work a driver is having to do. Now, this is a long Grand Prix, 83 laps, a high work rate. The only salvation for a driver is that in relative terms the grip level of the circuit is comparable, say, to Manicourt, which is not considered a particularly high grip circuit, but massive amount of work in the cockpit, hands, arms, upper body, a real aerobic exercise.
To spin that way is not very pleasant, but on the other hand, perhaps he gave us a little bit of warning about something in the car, because it happened the same thing to my teammate, exactly the same place. So I think we know perhaps that there is a possible potential problem somewhere.
So and there's an unusual sight. Unless Senna's trying to show us how to do a three-point parking, but in the middle of qualifying, I don't think that's his principal objective. And I think he stole the engine to boot. Well, he should have a bit of practice, because he did a pretty good, well, he's got it running, in fact. And having watched him spin out of contention, and I don't know why he bothered doing that. Now, I mean, that set of tyres probably was a fresh set of tyres, and just to boot it, let it slide round. You want to keep your tyres literally as fresh and as good a condition as possible. That may have been more frustration. And there you just see what happened. The back coming out of Piper Corner. Again, locking the brakes. Now, maybe the fronts.
Running the big rear wing, maximum downforce on the Williams, 0.3 of a second at the second intermediate. Whoa!
Oh, and Damon Hill, same place as Senna. Didn't spin it, but very hard on the brakes. That right front, I would say, is flat spotted. So that, again, a brand new set of tyres, small amount of rubber off it. And here's the overhead shot.
John said at the end of the corner yesterday, you said, you know, like it would bite at you. The front would suddenly grip and the back would, well, not.
At times, Damon's expression, and there you see turning in the back of the car, basically is on its way out. He gets on the brakes to try and avoid contact to the wall. Can't really see if he's done any damage to that left front. There's probably more Damon Hill, Patrick Head. Friday morning in the on-time session, when he in fact was third quickest. And now Senna preparing to get into either the spare or his prime race car. Man who of course took pole position on Friday, didn't really have to defend it on Saturday. Track conditions were quite a lot hotter, and in general
Pauli took that place during the second qualifying session, and Fittipaldi, one of only 7 drivers to improve during the Saturday afternoon session. And while we look at the guy that's on his 64th pole position, John. Ayrton Senna, ooh.
That's the problem he's been having throughout the weekend, that very, very sudden and unpredictable back end. This is the corner.
セナは初日のこのスーパーラップでポールポジションを手中にした。しかしセナもヒルも同じ場所でスピンし、マシンの特性に疑問を持っていた。 100% の満足ではなかった。エンジニアのデビッド・ブラウンにあれこれ注文を出す。セナは車をセットアップするとともにチームのシステムも変えていく。プロストカラーの残るチームを自分の色に。
Renntag in Japan. Flavio Briatore im Gespräch mit Senna. Als die Startampel auf grün schaltet, sprintet Michael Schumacher unwiderstehlich nach vorn.
Caused ultimately the retirement for Senna, and well, I don't know what to think about. Let's look at the overhead shot. You see Senna trying to sneak underneath, and contact from Mika Häkkinen, unintentional contact. Larini forced out Blundell in his Tyrrell, a spinner in the middle of the pack as well.
That's not a happy Frank Williams, and that is very definitely not a happy Ayrton Senna.
フォーメーションラップでスピードが遅く、タイヤを温められなかったことも災いした。
The exit of Acqua Minerale, and now here's his principal protagonist, Ayrton Senna, and the atmosphere in Williams here in Imola. Seconds now as he exits onto the start-finish straight. Well, 22.4 is 0.8 of a second slower than he achieved this morning, but it is his first
flying and timed lap. And it's good enough for provisional pole so far, so Ayrton Senna.
Tosser Heaven is one of the slowest, but not the slowest corner on the circuit. And the downforce is minimal at that speed, and if you're just a little bit too anxious turning in or a bit too quick on the wheel, the back will just pirouette round, you sold.
Looked like a very quick lap, to be honest. That's slow, 24.0. Well, slow, but I mean, that's a couple of seconds off.
Yes, indeed, and you're looking at Senna on that lap. He was not running wide out of corners. He was not doing what you would expect. The final thrust across start-finish line, 21.837, and that is back on to provisional pole by just under 0.2 of a second from his protagonist this year, and it's almost like the parrot on his shoulder. Whatever Senna does, he's shadowed, and he's spun now as identical to Schumacher. Now, Williams are running probably more downforce than I would suspect Benetton are, but still probably quite a lot less than Senna would be accustomed to in the first two Grand Prix of the year. And the margin is just so fine.
There we see it again, Ayrton Senna spinning off, but he has taken back that provisional pole position.
Gerhard Berger, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Oliver Panis, that's the top 10. And if we, for instance, have a look at, well, Ayrton Senna now goes top of the list, but
Michael Schumacher got maximum scores in Brazil, and that's not necessarily the best way to treat your tires, particularly in this type of session. But Senna very anxious indeed to open his score in the 94 championship. And Imola really is the circuit where the pendulum of favour must go in his favour, principally because this is an out-and-out power circuit. But that is the kind of thing that we've been seeing a lot of in 94. What I would describe as unpredictability in car handling. The car feels like it's got grip. You turn in, you want to get on the throttle a little bit earlier, and all of a sudden the car breaks away, and it is almost impossible in situations these days to regain control.
Including that little slide, he's still with a 23.3.
And this is the car running in its Grand Prix trim there. Now the flag out to bring the session to an end.
And Senna's last lap. Is it going to be any quicker than his?
Ayrton Senna in pole position on your right and into the Tamburello. Yes, and away they go there. Now the bit that we're going to see first of all is what is really the main straight at Imola. They will come up, we see the grid peeling away through this 1 mile section. We shall see. Now! And Senna falls away. Schumacher second, Berger third, Damon Hill, and that's a Lotus. They'll have to stop the race, I'm sure, because there's debris on the circuit. That is Pedro Lamy. It's Pedro Lamy. Ayrton Senna is leading Michael Schumacher by 0.3 of a second. Gerhard Berger is third. Damon Hill is in fourth position. Here come the leaders now. It is Senna, Schumacher, Berger, Hill. They're slowing down. The pace car is out. That's it, I think. The pace car is out, going up the hill. It's not right to call it the pace car, I apologise. It's a safety car. In circumstances like this car comes out with the flashing lights on the roof. Normally, he would have a problem to pick up the leader. The ruling is that he picks up the leader, and then all the others have to fall in line behind the leader with no passing allowed. We've had the safety car out very, very seldom. I can only remember it happening twice before, and never as early in a race as this. And I fear it's going to be out there for quite a long time and will be considerably increased. There's Senna, Schumacher, Berger, Hill. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 5th position behind Damon Hill, and Frentzen was 7th on the grid, weaving to keep the tyre temperatures up behind. But from your experience, would you say that this was adding to the pressure?
I'm not
not sure that it's adding to the pressure. I think it actually probably helps, really, because stopping the race, which would have been the alternative a couple of years ago, really adds to the pressure for the drivers to go through the start, which is clearly one of the most dangerous parts of a whole race, is something which most drivers would rather avoid. And to go around, they can settle themselves down after all the energy and adrenaline and tension of that start. They can keep their cars in good trim. Everyone's engine is running. You know, there are some who say that Formula One Grand Prix should be started with rolling starts like IndyCar racing, but I think for most people the excitement of a standing start is essential to Grand Prix racing.
Well, I can tell you that they've got JJ Leto's Benetton off, and it's...
Indeed, we saw get out of the car and walk away are both perfectly okay. This is the scene from Ayrton Senna's mirror. So very first camera, you're seeing his yellow helmet in the mirror as he goes into the Rivazza. That's the first of them cleared. This is the second. And they're 9 and 91. And that was a Minardi coming to a standstill.
Yes, that looked like Luigi Martini. I think we couldn't quite see the helmet clearly. It's either Alboreto or Martini. I suspect Martini. We don't know what his problem is, but no doubt it would have affected him either way and is not a consequence of this slow running. Of course, with regard to the strategy on pit stops, we believe that 2 stops is going to be the norm here, dividing the race into 3, and if that's the case, they'll be stopping on lap 20 of this 62-lap race. It's not impossible somebody could go for 3 stops because the
Tamburello and Villeneuve, the right-hander. And you hear the engine revs rise as Senna, followed by Schumacher. There is Berger. We're on lap 6 now, and the San Marino Grand Prix is go again, and as before, Schumacher is the chief rival to Ayrton Senna, who comes down to the Rivazza. There's Berger 3rd, Damon Hill is 4th, Frentzen in the black Sauber is 5th, Mika Häkkinen 6th, Larini 7th, and Carl Wendlinger in the 2nd black Sauber is in 8th position. Climbing up now, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Rivazza, they're climbing up now towards the Variante Alta as they go through the Acqua Minerale, dropping down to approach it at about 150 miles an hour. And there's a gap after the 2nd Sauber of Wendlinger. Ukio Katayama in the Tyrrell is in 9th place. Martin Brundle is in 10th, so he has gained places because Martin Brundle started in 13th position on the grid.
What's really interesting here is that Schumacher is very much keeping up with Senna. Now, from the morning warm-up times, he was 2 seconds slower than Senna, and that raised speculation as to whether he was actually going to make just 1 stop and therefore race with a much heavier fuel load. If he was going to do that, that would slow him down far more than his performance here looks, and it looks that perhaps that was a Benetton smokescreen. I'm not quite sure why they were so far off in the warm-up, but he is really not losing much to Senna at all. I would say basically he's right with him.
Well, we are right with Michael. A lot of action, and here it is. Now look, he's going into the left-hander tremendously fast, and he runs wide and goes straight off. Doesn't even attempt to take the corner.
Ayrton Senna do Brasil liderando a competição. Christian Fittipaldi já ganhou 2 posições, mas Schumacher vai forçando o Cândido. Exatamente, Schumacher vai forçando. Vamos esperar a passagem aqui. Por enquanto a diferença do computador 0.556. Agora passa Ayrton sexta volta, a diferença aumentou. Passou para 0.682.
A far more unhappy sight in the other, and this is Schumacher's car, and you see Ayrton Senna veering off to the right, quite on the wrong line to attempt to take the corner. This is Damon Hill's car. You see there's Schumacher disappearing in the distance, and Damon would have seen that great plume of dust as he went by in his car. And Damon's car, as I talk to you, is actually being pushed onto the grid for the 2nd race out of 61. This is a replay again from Schumacher's Benetton.
Yes, we watch it. It's just about now that the car appears to us to turn slightly right.
Now, if you look at this, they're rocking backwards and forwards. You'll see a flash of sparks there underneath Senna's car. We're actually rolling back now while they reposition the tape. But there appeared to me to be a flash of sparks.
As Senna, followed by by Schumacher. There is Berger. We're on lap 6 now, and the sound.
Porém, a frase que mais chama a atenção é a de Frank Williams. Ele fala energicamente com o técnico da Goodyear. Há um grande problema.
Senna está preocupado. Não posso ter uma desvantagem como essa por uma questão técnica, disse ele. Não é minha responsabilidade. Senna está descontente com algo relacionado aos pneus. Não funciona, repete ele. Outra frase de Senna. Esse negócio é sério, não dá para fazer concessões. Alguém tem que fazer direito. Mas é de Frank Williams a frase que mais impressiona. Ele se dirige a um dos técnicos de pneus. Faça o que Ayrton quer. Se Ayrton sofrer um acidente, você estará em grande problema. Um dia depois, Senna deixou o box da Williams para se preparar para a largada do Grande Prêmio de San Marino.
I think this is going to be a new stage in my career.
I want it.
Bei der Boxenausfahrt explodiert der Ferrari-Motor. Damon Hill geht es nicht viel besser. Mit gebrochener Vorderradaufhängung kehrt der britische Hoffnungsträger aus seinem